I got a question for you this morning. How are you doing? Now, I want you to resist the knee-jerk reaction that we all say, good, right? We all do that. Most of the conversations that I have with you, if we get beneath the surface somewhat, I get two really common answers. Can you guess what they are? They are busy and tired. How are you? Busy, man, busy. Everything's busy. Work is busy. Family's busy. Life is busy. Or tired. I'm just so tired. Everything's so tiring, exhausting, whatever. You know this is the case for yourself as well and people that you interact with. Maybe you come here this morning and you're exhausted. Maybe just not physically, but mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. And if you're honest, you're saying this morning you come in running on fumes. And it feels like at any given moment, it could all come to a crashing halt. Maybe you slept 8 hours and you wake up and you're still tired. Maybe you went on a vacation and that came and went, and somehow, even after your vacation, you're more tired than when you entered into the vacation. You find yourself being incredibly forgetful about everything, and you can't seem to have the energy to focus. And on top of being exhausted, you're overwhelmed. Because work is busy. You have a mountain of emails that you have to respond to. You know tomorrow is already going to be a busy day before you even walk through the door. And every day it seems you're trying to play catch up from the week before. I mean, there's soccer practice and parent-teacher conferences and final exams and grocery shopping and bills and homework and family drama and doctor's appointments, and the list goes on and on. And when we come to read or pray, we can't seem to bring ourselves to focus for more than just a few minutes, and continually are interrupted by how busy we are. Brothers and sisters, is this how Jesus intends for us to live? You think that this is the way that Jesus offers us to live in Him, exhausted and overbusy. Each day bleeding to the next, hoping that someday in the future, it'll all be better. Pete Scazzaro, in his book, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, says this: we live in a blizzard, and few of us have a rope. Now, when I read these words, I felt the sting of that truth. In his book, Pete talks about how in the Midwest, the blizzards that they have are a force of nature. We experience some snow here in New Mexico, and everybody runs to Facebook to post the meme that no one knows how to drive in the snow in New Mexico. But they experience real blizzards, so much so that if you're in the middle of a blizzard, you can't see your hand in front of your face. And so, if you have to leave your house for any reason, it's a dangerous endeavor, even just to go do something quickly outside or whatever. And so many people had experienced some crazy things happening, so much so that if you left your house without knowing exactly how to get back, some people died in their own yards, just feet away from their door, not being able to navigate themselves back in a blizzard. So what people started to do was tied a rope to their house and carried the rope with them wherever they had to go so that they could find their way back to their door in the midst of a blizzard. And it's these words that Pete uses to describe life in modern America today, that all of us are caught in the blizzards and storms of our world, and we don't have a rope to get us back home. Do you feel this way? When something's wrong with your vehicle, you get a little handy check engine light that shines up on your dashboard. Some of you have been ignoring that for far too long. And this is the Lord coming to you saying, tend to the check engine light. But what you're supposed to do when you get those is not pray as you get into your car and ask God to bless the drive ahead, but instead take it to an AutoZone, an O'Reilly's, or whatever, and they can run a diagnostics on the check engine light. And it'll pull up codes, and it'll tell you, here's what's going wrong with your vehicle. For many of us, there's a check engine light on our soul. And we've been running far too long ignoring it and just praying that hopefully, by God's grace, it'll somehow go away. And so today, as we get started in today's message, I want to run a quick diagnostics of your souls in two categories. First is hurry sickness, and the next is being before doing. Let's first talk about hurry sickness. I got this test from John Mark's book, Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. If you have not read it, this is a great companion with what we're talking about today. And in it, some psychologists define hurry sickness as such. Hurry sickness is a malaise in which a person feels chronically short of time, and so tends to perform every task faster and to get flustered when encountering any kind of delay. Does this sound like someone you know? Here are the 10 symptoms or signs of hurry sickness. First is irritability. You get mad, frustrated, or just annoyed way too easily. People have to tiptoe around your ongoing low-grade negativity, if not anger. The next is that you're hypersensitive. All it takes is one minor comment to hurt your feelings. A grumpy email, a slight turn of events to throw your whole emotional health in the dumpster and ruin your day. Depending on your personality, this might show up as anger or nitpickiness or anxiety or depression, and often just plain tiredness. There's that of restlessness. When you actually try to slow down, you can't relax. You read scripture and you find it boring. You have quiet time with God, but you can't seem to focus your mind. You go to bed early, but toss and turn with anxiety. You watch TV while simultaneously scrolling on your phone, while simultaneously folding laundry because you can't seem to just be in one place at one time. There's that of workaholism, where you don't know when to stop, or worse, you can't stop. Another hour, another day, another week. Your drug of choice is accomplishment and accumulation. There's that of emotional numbness. You don't have the capacity any longer to feel another's pain or yours for that matter. There's out of order priorities. You feel disconnected from your identity and calling. You're always getting sucked into the tyranny of the urgent, not the important. Your life is reactive, not proactive. And you're busier than ever before, but still feel like you don't have time for what really matters. There's lack of care for your body. You aren't allowed, or you don't have the time for the basics. 8 hours of sleep, daily exercise, home-cooked meals. And so, as a byproduct, you gain weight. You feel sick frequently. You wake up tired and you don't sleep well. There's that of escapist behavior, which looks like overeating, overdrinking, binge watching, multiple hours on social media. And you use all of these and more to escape from reality. The next is slippage of spiritual disciplines. The first thing you go to when you are busy, or the first thing to go, rather, when you are busy are your commitments to your life with God, such as scripture, prayer, silence and solitude, church attendance, community groups, etc. And last is isolation. You feel disconnected from God, others, and your own soul. How are you doing on that test so far? Are you experiencing hurry sickness? The next is the doing before being. We have talked with great importance about work in this series, and though our work is important, hear me in this, it is not the most important thing in your life. And so we were not created to do stuff for God. We were created to be with God. And it's important to understand that distinction. And so for many of us, myself included, this process can get out of whack. And so by way of a simple test developed by Pete Scazzaro in his book, Emotionally Healthy Discipleship, he has some questions that we want to present to us to see if we are doing before being. The first is this: I can't shake the pressure I feel from having too much to do and too little time. I am ignoring the stress, anxiety, and tightness I feel in my body. I am concerned with what others think. I am often fearful about the future. I am always rushing. I am defensive and easily offended. I am preoccupied and distracted. I fire off quick opinions and judgments, And last, I feel unenthusiastic about or threatened by the success of others. If you're anything like me and you did these tests, you're not doing so hot, you know? You're going to have to stay after class for some extra tutoring because it's not looking so good for you. One of the dreams I believe that God has for our church is that we would become a home for the spiritually homeless, that we would be a haven for those beaten down and broken by the world, and that we would be a harbor for those whose hearts are weary, navigating the seas of this life to anchor themselves in the presence of God. But hear me in this, brothers and sisters. We cannot give that which we don't have. We cannot give that which we do not have. As we begin talking about being a church for the city, how can we give rest, peace, joy, hope, and life abundant with God if that's not what we ourselves are experiencing? Look, I know so many people in the room right now who could tell me about a Bible study they loved, a podcast they heard that they really met them, a worship album they enjoy, a sermon they liked. But if they were honest, they couldn't tell you the last time they stopped from all the noise and chaos of life and are actually just with Jesus. Many of us can talk about life with God, but many of us a few of us rather, are experiencing life with God right now. And here's my fear. My fear is that too many of us, myself included, are asking God to bless us as we're hurrying through life rather than just walking with Jesus. My fear is we're just like, all right, come on, Lord, I got a lot of things to do today. Come with me, instead of being people who sit under the lordship of Jesus and seeing what he wants to do. We are so good at telling God our plans and asking him to bless those rather than stopping and saying, God, what do you want to do? What do you long for in my life? Instead of allowing Jesus to inform and shape the pace of our lives, we demand that the God of the universe catch up to our way of living. But what if our way of living is actually what's keeping God at a distance? Recently, as a leadership team, we just had this sense of like opposition on Sunday mornings, that there's just kind of this hurdle we can't get over, this hindrance we can't break through. And this week I was kind of just praying a little frustrated, to be honest with you, just not being able to exactly diagnose what it was that was kind of keeping us from breaking through. And I just had this sense that the Lord was telling me, I cannot bless that which I'm not in, and that he is not in the worship of self-reliance. We are overtired and overbusy because we fundamentally believe that goodness comes not from life with God, but as a product of our own hands. We would never say that out loud, but we live that with our lives. And our lives are laid down on the altar of self-reliance. It sounds something like this. Yes, I trust Jesus, but I will spend every moment I get drowning in distraction behind a screen in my hand or one mounted on the wall because I'm afraid of what I might find in the stillness of silence. Yes, I trust Jesus, but I need to keep my kids busy every single night of the week because if I don't, they will blow up their lives with bad decisions. Yes, I trust Jesus, but I need to work weekends, side jobs, late nights, early mornings, because if only we make a little bit more money, then we will be happy. Yes, I trust Jesus, but when things go wrong, I need to do everything within my power to fix it and control it, because if it's not in my hands, it will fall apart. Yes, I trust Jesus, but, and these are the words of self-reliance, and these are the words that we utter. And though we may not want to admit this openly, we live this with our lives. So is there a different way, a better way, that realigns our heart with the reality of the kingdom, repositions ourselves under the lordship of Jesus, resists the idolatry of our culture, and gives rest to our souls? I'm glad you asked. This morning, I want to lead our community towards the practice of Sabbath. This has been a practice in the people of God for thousands of years. And this practice is even woven into the very fabric of creation. Now, here's what I don't want you to be hearing. Oh, great. something else to add on to my already busy week, my already busy life. This is not that at all. Sabbath is not an invitation to addition, but it's actually an invitation into subtraction. It's learning to get rid of the things that keep you from the things that are most important. So this isn't going to be heaped on top of your already busy pile. The gift and the practice of Sabbath actually brings organization and priority to the areas of your life that need ordering. A.J. Swoboda says this: the Sabbath has largely been forgotten by the church, which has uncritically mimicked the rhythms of the industrial and success-obsessed West. The result? Our road-weary, exhausted churches have failed to integrate Sabbath into their lives as vital elements of Christian discipleship. It is not as though we don't love God. We love God deeply. We just don't know how to sit with God anymore. We have become perhaps the most emotionally exhausted, psychologically overworked, and spiritually malnourished people in history. My goal is to lead our community towards the teaching of rest and Sabbath that we find in the Scriptures, that we might become a community that experiences margin, rest, and delight because of that practice. Now, if anything I've said thus far is resonating with you, I want to invite you to lean in right now. I want to invite you to lean into what God has for you in the gift that is the Sabbath. And if you are longing for a life that looks different than the one that you're living right now, then something has to change. It's not going to change by osmosis and just sitting here and listening to it, but it's actually through practice. Henry Nouwen says this: you don't think your way into a new kind of living, but hear this: you live your way into a new kind of thinking. And so as we embark on this journey, I already sense some hesitation, and I already sense some things I just want to call out. First, I want to call out the opposition in your mind. Already as we've begun, you're thinking, yeah, maybe some people could do that, but not me. I'm too busy. Like, that might be nice for him and his life or whatever. He gets paid to do this, But me, I got things going on. I have a lot of stuff in my world. And so it sounds like this is not for me. The voice in your head might sound like this is impossible or unreasonable. It may even sound like this sounds like legalism or something of that nature. And I just want maybe for you to notice how strange it would be for there to be opposition in your mind when we're just talking about getting rest. And think about how weird that is, that there would already be in your mind like, oh, but I have, and there's these things, and that's already rising up in you, and we're just talking about rest. You see, what happens is the idols we serve get louder when they get addressed. Yeah, that's good. The idols we serve get louder when they get addressed. And one of the idols that all of us worship and bow down to at times is the idol of busyness, the idol of performance, the idol of work. And so as we're addressing it, it's getting louder. Oh, don't listen to him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Look at him, But God is inviting you in. So I just want to ask, notice that opposition in your mind, and notice how strange that is. That all I'm just talking about is rest, and already this is welling up in you. And that's often a sign that there's an idol in your heart. The next thing I want to invite you to do is just hear me out. Look, it might be easy to disengage right now and rest, nice for everybody else. But I want to invite you just to please hear me out this morning. The next thing I want to call attention to is just this. As we talk about rest, I want you to honestly ask yourself the question, what sounds more like Jesus? This practice of Sabbath, this gift of rest, delighting in God, delighting in His creation, or the life that you're living right now, overworked and overbusy and stressed out and lacking in love towards others? What sounds more like Jesus and the life that He intends for you to live? And lastly is this: we cannot love well without rest. When we are tired, we don't behave super well, right? When you're exhausted, man, are you loving and present and thoughtful and just considerate and careful with your words? Chances are probably not. When I'm tired and I'm stressed out, I'm irritable, I'm short with my wife, I'm snappy about every little thing, like a little bit of milk spills, and it must be, whatever, I'm already going off about whatever it is, and that's when I'm tired. When I wake up rested, it's no big deal, I'll just clean this up real quick, Because when we're tired, we cannot love well. We respond with anger, and we're defensive, and we're selfish, and we're irritable. So said simply, we do not love well if we're exhausted. And so if the end goal of discipleship to Jesus is becoming people of love, we cannot get to that destination without the practice of rest. Now, let's define Sabbath. Sabbath is the Hebrew word Shabbat, and it literally means to stop. To cease, to stop in your tracks right there. Shabbat. If you were to walk towards me and say Shabbat, it means to stop, to cease, exactly what you're doing right now. And Sabbath, simply defined as this. The Sabbath is a 24-hour block of time in which the people of God stop working and doing and position themselves towards God in rest. John Mark defines a Sabbath as this. The Sabbath is simply a day to stop working, stop wanting, stop worrying, just stop. And so some of the things I think that will be helpful for us is as we define what Sabbath is to talk about what Sabbath is not. And here's what's important. Sabbath isn't just a day off. Let me explain. Most of our days off are busier than our days on. You know what I'm saying? You get a day off, and what do? Oh, I got to do the laundry, got to clean the kitchen, got to do this, got to go to the grocery store, got to do this, got to do that, got to fix that thing that's been bothering me for months, etc., etc. When you have free time to yourself, you're already filling it with all the things that you have to do. And so, though you may not be getting paid for your work, it's still work. And so many of us, on our days off, they are filled with all sorts of things. And so it's important for us to understand, first and foremost, Sabbath isn't about us getting extra time to do things that we need to do. Sabbath is first and foremost about God. Notice what Eugene Peterson says. He says this, Sabbath is not primarily about us or how it benefits us. It is about God and how God forms us. I don't see any way out of it. If we're going to live appropriately in creation, we must keep the Sabbath. Walking in the practice of Sabbath is not solely about us getting what we need, though we do need it, but it is about living into the design of creation and submitting our lives unto the lordship of Jesus. So when you get this day off, or when you get a day off, it looks like shopping, errands, working on the house, cleaning, laundry, dishes, meal prep, and the list goes on and on. And to Sabbath means to cease from work. So Sabbath is not just a day off. Now there's 4 key components to what make up a Sabbath. You ready? The first is to stop, is to Shabbat, is to cease. You are not a machine. Meaning that you have limits, you have a bandwidth, meaning you're not meant to operate without rest. And so stopping is the first crucial reality to practicing Sabbath. Now hear me in this. We don't stop when the work is done. Why? Because the work will never be finished. The list keeps going on and on. Laundry and dishes are the cycle that never ends, right? As long as you're living, there'll be laundry and dishes, you know? And so if you're waiting for that to be complete one day, it won't be. Because even if you knock out all the laundry in your house, you're still wearing clothes. At least I hope, right? And so Sabbath is about not stopping when the work is done, because the work will never be done, and the list keeps growing. But it's acknowledging that He is God and I am not. And finding rest in the reality that He works while I sleep, while I slumber, that He's God. I'm not a machine. And it's accepting the limits that God has placed on us. When we stop, it is an embodied acknowledgement of the reality that the world does not depend on or rely on me to keep going. This is really an issue of trust. We think that if for some reason we stop working, the world will fall apart. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. Stopping is an embrace of our humanity. We are not God. We are not a machine. We are human beings. The way God has made us is that we were made for rest. Our work is important, but as equally as important is the rest that we take. So when we Sabbath, it is in love and humility receiving the gifts of limits on our lives. It's saying, God has made me a human being, with limited bandwidth, with limited capacity. And so I bring my whole body into worship with him by stopping, by ceasing, and realizing the world's not on my shoulders. I'm not responsible for keeping this whole thing going, because guess what happens? If you die tonight, the sun's going to rise tomorrow, and people's lives are going to go on. And so you can take all that pressure off, because it's not on you. It's not on Andrew's shoulders for the whole world to keep spinning. The next idea here is this: Sabbath will come for you one way or another, either by discipline or by delight. A couple of Mondays ago, it was the strangest thing that had happened. After Christmas is a really busy time in the church world. It's like new vision series, new other stuff. So all of December, I'm confessing here, so don't judge me, I was working a lot. I was really excited about coming on staff, really zealous about that kind of stuff. And so some days, and this is confessing here, so please do not judge me and ridicule me later, I was working 6, sometimes 7 days a week. Now, not all full days, sometimes in part and piece. And I'd get the look from my wife through the door of my office like, hey, you better get out here. And I was just so excited and working and whatever. And so we came out of that tail end of Christmas and all this other stuff. And feel like we just came sprinting into January. And one Monday, a couple of Mondays ago, I woke up just feeling like death, Like one of those things when you get out of the shower and you don't think you have the strength to muster up to like dry your body and get back to like your bed. That's how I was feeling. And Celeste is like worried. We thought I got COVID round 2 or something. We're like, oh no, here we go again. And I just feel weak. I feel exhausted. And so all day long I slept. Like just all day long I slept. I woke up a little bit, watched a little bit of TV, then right back to bed. And I was like, what's going on? I'm getting sick. Tuesday morning, woke up, felt great. Nothing was wrong. My wife thought I was peeling it and faking it, And so I was kind of wrestling with the Lord, like, that was weird. What was that? And he just met me saying, you were just relying on yourself that whole time. You were just going and going and going, think that the church relied on you getting up that day and doing work for the church. And so Sabbath came for me. And I have a feeling that Sabbath has come to you before. You've been going and working and going, and all of a sudden you're sick as a dog. And so everything in your life comes to a halt because you've been burning the candle at both ends. You've been overworking, you've been overfilling your schedule, and all of a sudden one day it all just comes to a crashing halt. And so Sabbath is either something we integrate into our schedules and do with delight, or it comes to us through discipline, and it just comes for you. The choice is yours. Personally, I'd much rather have it implemented into our life and schedule and it not come through sickness or something of that nature. The next key component of Sabbath is that of rest. So once we've stopped working, the next thing that we do is that we rest. Now, rest looks different for everybody, but essentially, rest is all about doing things that replenish the mind, body, and soul. So you know what that looks like? It looks like taking a nap. It looks like sleeping in. It looks like going for a walk. It looks like reading a book. It looks like going to the gym, going to get a bite to eat, watching a good movie, making some delicious coffee, whatever replenishes your soul. Now, I already hear the workaholics in here making suggestions that in their mind that they can work and it be replenishing to the soul. Oh, this always makes me feel better. If it's work, the answer is no, right? It has to be replenishing and restful. It's not answering emails really give me a lot of replenishment. False, they don't, right? It's resting. And so whatever gives you life, whatever fills you up is considered rest as long as it's not work. Those are the parameters. And so this is honest. This is the part where you have to be honest with yourself and with community, saying, hey, what's rest for me and what's not? Because if you're a workaholic, you'll sort of like sneak it in like an addict. You know what I'm saying? I got to get my fix that day or something, and you got to work and do something like that. And so it has to be, so whatever's replenishing for your mind. So for some people, working out is replenishing for the body and the soul. Going for a run or something like that, you leave invigorated, you feel lifted up, you feel like you could take on the rest of it. That's wonderful. For some people, gardening is that. Getting out there and gardening or baking and things like that. And so for some of us, we may perceive that as work, but for others, it's replenishing and life-giving to the soul. And so this is not like a hard line for you to determine what is and what isn't, but this is something you just walk through together and that you be honest about yourself and others about, if this is something that's work for you. The next is delight. And this is just where we breathe in creation. This is where we slow down our minds and bodies enough just to take notice and bring attention to the beauty and wonder of creation. Part of the Sabbath is eating really good food. You know the food that gives you like a physical reaction when you eat it? Like, oh, this. You know, you just pause in the middle of the meal just to show the delight of the meal that you're eating. And so if there's something like that for you, where it's just like, maybe you're keto, new year, new you, the whole thing, but one thing that you have a hankering for is like a big brownie with ice cream on top or something. The Sabbath is the day for that, you know? The Sabbath is the day for pancakes in the morning or whatever it looks like for you, drinking a delicious beverage, and then just delighting in creation. It's like slowing down enough to notice that like you have beautiful flowers in your yard. Taking time to posture yourself that as the sun's going down, you step outside for a few moments and you watch the sun come down and just breathe in the beauty of God's creation. A huge part of Sabbath is just delighting in the world that God has made. But often we can't seem to do that because we're so busy filling up our lives with stuff. So Sabbath is this moment we just delight and contemplate and show gratitude and appreciation for God. And then next is that of contemplation. Lastly, you contemplate. You intentionally shift your mind towards God. You take notice of the things that he's doing in your life. You worship him. You give thanks and gratitude and prayer. You position yourself to receive the love of God. But as far as you go through your Sabbath, as long as you go through your Sabbath, you are inviting God into those places of stopping and resting and delighting. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but how? How do I practically do a Sabbath? First and foremost, make time. If you do not make time for the Sabbath, you will not do it, straight up. If it's not put into your schedule, it's not a rhythm, a part of your life, you will not do it. And so ideally, this is a 24-hour block of time. I realize some of you, 24 hours? Do you realize I only have 2 days off a week? I hear you. I understand. One of the things about this that we've tried to do in my household is we've tried to do Sabbath starting on the night before, and it leads to the following evening. So for us, it looks like starting Thursday night, which is mine and my wife's date night, leading into Friday night. And so we have that's a 24-hour period that we try to do Sabbath. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and be like, we're Sabbath experts. We can teach you everything that we know. It has been a fight and a struggle for sure. But when we've been at our healthiest, we've been able to implement that rhythm. Now, there is something to be said here about the poor not being able to enjoy this, right? There are a lot of people who are in financial situations where they can't have a day off. And so I acknowledge that's a reality, but the thing I want to speak to that is this. If someone's financial situation is keeping them from obedience to the way of Jesus, then it's our responsibility as a community to come alongside them so that's no longer the case. That if there's somebody in our community who literally isn't making enough money without working 7 days a week, they can't take a single day off, and that speaks more to that's an issue in our community rather than it's an issue in that person's life. And as the body of Christ, the family of Jesus, it is our job to free our brothers and sisters of the tyranny of having that kind of financial burden so that they may enjoy the rest and delight in the Lord. And there's many of us for whom that is more than a reality that we could do and accomplish. So, start where you can. I realize maybe for you right now with work and school and all other things, you can't have a full 24-hour period. I'll say start where you can. If it's 12 hours, dedicate 12 hours to doing something like this, and not 8 of them being when you sleep, but literally 12 hours where you dedicate this time to resting and delighting. And so for a lot of people, Sundays makes a lot of sense. You can start Sabbath worshiping and being in community and then finish the rest of your day out enjoying and relaxing and delighting in the Lord. And so, like I said, we do Thursday night to Friday night because today is technically a work day for me. But whatever your schedule would look like, but dedicate a time to do Sabbath. The next thing is that you have to prepare for it. You have to work really hard to not work on Sabbath, right? So the Jewish people had what's called a preparation day, which the whole entire day was to prep for Sabbath, right? It was to get all their affairs in order, grocery shopping, pay the bills, do all that kind of stuff, so on Sabbath they could rest. So you're going to have to prepare for it. You're going to have to get all the things in order, run those errands, do those things, so that on Sabbath you have that day to rest and to delight. The next thing is I want to encourage us to disengage digitally. One thing that we can do often is on our Sabbath is still kind of lean towards our digital addictions and stay committed to those places. And so obviously if like watching a movie and stuff like that is life-giving to you and to your family, I want to encourage that. But it's like, my wife calls them TV zombies. You know, if all day long we've just been sitting there watching TV. If something of that nature, it's like that's not really Sabbath. Sabbath is having time to spend well with others, not just mindlessly drowning behind a screen. And so if it's possible, turn off your cell phone. Keep it off. Or maybe not that. You could do like the work feature or the do not disturb feature, so only like mom and brother and stuff get through if there's an emergency. But everybody else can wait 24 hours to get a text back or a call, and they could honor that time off. And lastly, it's this. It's an art, not a science, meaning this is not about legalism. It's not like, hey, we did it at 6, but only did it at 5. That's only 23 hours. We failed to do it, whatever. No, absolutely not. This is an art, not a science, meaning it's going to look different in every season of life. My wife and I are in the season of 2 kids under 5. Do you think they care about Sabbath? Absolutely not. They want to go. They want to fight. They want to play. They want to wrestle. And so what we have to do as a family is just kind of call audibles to accommodate the boys. Now, we try to bring them into Sabbath rest by having little intentional practices to kind of invite them into like, hey, this is a really day for us to rest and relax and delight in the Lord. But it's like if you have a toddler, you know you're not sitting on the couch all day. Right? You're trying to constantly prevent them from danger or harm to themselves or others, you know? And so that's not really technically Sabbath, but man, there's so much grace in different seasons of life. But the goal is that our heart is postured in that direction. And so it's more of an art than a science. And so realizing this looks different in different seasons, right? Empty nesters are going to probably have a little bit easier of an opportunity to be able to practice Sabbath in full. But if you have teenage kids or young kids, it may look a little different. But the whole thing is that as a family, your heart is postured towards that direction. And so now I want to get into Sabbath as modeled by the Scriptures. So you're like, okay, hey, I understand how to do it, but where is this in the Scriptures? Again, so glad you asked. So on the opening pages of Genesis, in the creation account, we see the beauty and wonder of God bringing order to chaos. And in this divine ordering, look what happens on the seventh day, Genesis 2. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in their vast array. But the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. And on the seventh day, he what? Rested from all of his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. God is all-powerful, all-knowing, speaks universes into existence. And what did he choose to do to set a pattern in creation? He rested. Now, is it because he was really tired, really fatigued from all this creating he had been doing? Guys, it's exhausting creating the whole world and universe, you know? No. It's because it's woven into the fabric of who he is and the world that he's made is this posture of rest. And so notice, on all the previous 6 days, every single day ends with there was morning and evening, the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day. But here on the seventh day, that's not there. Why? Because God's Sabbath rest goes on into creation. It's not over yet. It spreads out into God's world. Now, Adam and Eve choose to disobey God and define good and evil for themselves and not live in God's rest, so they are exiled out of Eden. But God's heart this whole time is that they would experience his presence, and from his presence experience rest. And so God sets apart the seventh day as holy, and he blesses it. And so Sabbath stands out from the rest of the week, and on it rests the favor of God. Now, we move along in the story, and as God is setting for himself a people, one of the terms of the covenant of being the people of God is to remember the Sabbath. Exodus 20. Moses says this, "Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor in all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son, or your daughter, nor your male or female servants, nor your animals, nor your foreigners residing in towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord has blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy." This is by far the longest commandment in the 10 Commandments. It is. The rest are like, don't murder, right? That's pretty simple. And then this is Sabbath. But notice that all the rest of the commandments are like, do not, but this one is remember. Why? Because Sabbath didn't go anywhere, we just forgot about it. And so what God is calling his people to is always remember, always bring it up, because what the disposition in your heart is going to be is to neglect, is to ignore. So he's saying, remember it. Remember it woven into the fabric of creation, that this is how God has made his world. And so, for the people of God, to be in relationship with Yahweh means to rest. Now, what's interesting is this is the only one of the 10 commandments that we're really cool with disobeying, and honestly brag about disobeying. You know, all the rest of them, I think we're all on the same page, like not murdering, being covetous, committing adultery, lying. We're all pretty much, we shouldn't do those things. But breaking Sabbath, we brag about. Oh, yeah, man, worked so many hours this week, worked this, whatever. We brag about breaking it. And it's one of the only things that's culturally really just acceptable for us to do. And so this practice of Sabbath kept the people of God through empires and cultures designed just like ours. Pete Scazzaro says this: the Sabbath was always a hallmark for the Jews throughout history. This one act, perhaps more than any other, kept them from the pressure of the powerful cultures that sought to assimilate them. For this reason, it is often said that for 3,500 years, the Sabbath has kept the Jews more than the Jews have kept the Sabbath. Next, I want to take a look at Sabbath in the life of Jesus. We see that in the life of Jesus, Jesus himself keeps the Sabbath. Now, understanding, the religious leaders at the time took this command, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy, and out of an abundance of caution and fear, put all sorts of additional rules on the Sabbath, like how far you could walk and how you could cook and what you could do, etc., etc. This was called the Mishnah. They added all these additional rules to the Sabbath. And so when Jesus shows up, he's breaking their rules. Right? Because he's healing people on the Sabbath. That's the most often one. He's feeding people on the Sabbath, doing stuff like that. And that's where they get frustrated. You're not supposed to work on the Sabbath. And Jesus is like, you're misunderstanding the heart of the Sabbath. Right? And so Jesus, in his response back to them, says this in Mark 2. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. And so his rebuke to them was that, look, guys, you're forgetting the purpose for which this was made. You're not really understanding why this was put here. It was not put here as rules and regulations, but actually as a gift for us to delight in. And so we've added all this pressure on top of it that's not supposed to be there, right? Because Jesus was healing people and doing good on the Sabbath. And so he reminds them that the Sabbath is a gift that God has given his people to walk in and enjoy, not a burden they must bear. And throughout the stories of the scriptures, we see Sabbath is ingrained in the people of God and in the stories of the scriptures. And so what does Sabbath do? First, Sabbath repositions us. Sabbath is repositioning. One of the first things it does is that Sabbath repositions followers of Jesus to follow him, not just the culture around us. One of the things I think we can be deeply misguided on is the way that where we live has a great influence often on us. We often succumb to the vision of the good life as taught by American culture, not by the teachings of Jesus. Ask yourself the simple question: how has America shaped my view of what is good? And in what ways are we calling something good that isn't? John Ortberg says this: being busy is not just a disordered schedule, it's a disordered heart. And we have believed the lie that being busy is good, when in reality, our pursuit of busyness is rooted in lies about our identity, that we are only as good as the work that we do. When today, before you opened your crusty eyes and rolled out of bed, right? Before you got in the shower, before anything you ever did anything, you were loved, you were worthy, you were seen, you were cared and sought after by the God of heaven. You are not what you do. You are a son or daughter of the King. But we believe the lie so often that we are what we do, and our worth is only as much as the last thing that we did. And Sabbath teaches us to live in that reality. Wayne Mueller says this: a quote-unquote successful life has become a violent enterprise. We make war on our bodies, pushing them beyond their limits. War on our children because we cannot find enough time to be with them when they are hurt or afraid or need our company. War on our spirit because we are too preoccupied to listen to the quiet voices that seek to nourish and refresh us. War on our communities because we are fearfully practicing what we have and do not feel safe enough to be kind and generous. War on the earth because we cannot take time to place our feet on the ground and allow it to feed us, to taste its blessings, and to give thanks. I love that. A successful life has become a violent enterprise. Sabbath frees us from the tyrannical vision of success as taught by our culture and frees us to be children of God. Brothers and sisters, do not believe the lie that you are only as good as what you've recently done. You are good because the creator of the universe has declared you good by the blood of his Son. The next thing is Sabbath as resistance. When we practice Sabbath, we draw a line in the sand. We're saying we're not going to be subject to whatever our environment says is good. We're going to live into what Jesus says is good. And so practicing Sabbath wages war on consumerism, performance, and workaholism. When we Sabbath, we rest in not performing for those around us or for God. When we Sabbath, we walk in gratitude and contentment for what we have. And when we Sabbath, we refuse the lie that the work that I do is the most important thing about me. And the last thing is Sabbath as rest. Jesus says here in our teaching text, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." In your scriptures, this is in Matthew chapter 11, Jesus says this as a prelude to his teaching about the Sabbath, specifically when he talks to the Pharisees about David going into the temple and eating some of the bread that has been consecrated for the priests because him and his buddies were starving and on the run. And Jesus uses this to say that he is Lord of the Sabbath. And so you're going to have a chapter break in the scriptures. That's not there. Jesus keeps talking in that sequence. So Jesus says this line as a prelude to teaching on the Sabbath. And so this invitation from Jesus is an invitation to rest. There is something about these words of Jesus that feel like water to a thirsty soul. Rest for a weary heart and shade for those who are worn down on this journey of life. We all feel it deep in our bones, this longing for real rest. Not just tuning out, not just a quick nap, but meaningful rest that touches deep in our souls. Here this morning, Jesus is offering you this. We so frantically run about our lives pursuing things we hope bring us satisfaction, but are always founded wanting more and tired. And there in the flurry of the mess is this beautiful invitation from Jesus to come to him and find rest. I've told you that Sabbath is about resting in the presence of God. And here, Jesus this morning is inviting you into the shelter from the storms of life into his arms to enjoy his presence and breathe in his rest. So right now, we're going to enter into a time of response. Am I talking about you this morning? Are you the one who just longs for and needs rest? Man, do you just feel this burden in you that sounds so nice to partake in that, to participate in that? I want that. Well, I want to lead us as a community this morning to respond to Jesus now. And so I'm going to ask Nate to come up, and he's going to kind of close us down in our response time. And I'm going to ask you guys to stand. And as we close out this time, if that's you, if you're the one who needs rest, we're going to have people up here who just want to pray for you, who just want to pray that this would be a reality in your life. And so, would you just please come up and respond in that way?